Good to be here, everybody. And for this brief moment that I'll be with you, I want to talk about my professional life's purpose, which is principal leadership. It's leadership, but specifically principal leadership with the question, is my school a better school because I lead it? But let me go back to the genesis of that question. As a rookie principal, I did 14 years of principal leadership. As a rookie principal, I used to sit in my office after school and just kind of reflect upon the day. And I asked myself the question, do I matter? Do I matter? And given the time we have here, and I know that there are various capacities beyond principal leadership, we're going to make this relevant to whomever's on the call or who will see the video later on. So I'm asking you, do you matter? I ask myself that question every day. And there were days when I really questioned myself relative to my answer, do I matter? But then as time went on, I looked at the question differently and I asked myself every day after school, does my leadership matter? Is there something about the skill set that I bring? Is there something about the leadership that I bring to a school, to staff, to students, to parents, to the community, the broader community? Does my leadership matter relative to our goals and objectives? But then as time elapsed, I kind of brought the two together and I asked a question, and I say to folks every day, I say, if I could come up with a more potent question to ask leaders, I'd write a book about it as I did this question. And the question is my school a better school because I lead it? But typically, I ask the question like this. I say, is my school a better school because I lead it? See, in other words, I'm asking you, if you're a teacher watching right now, is that classroom a better classroom because you teach in it? Asked differently, are your students at an advantage because you are their teacher? I like to be self-reflective in everything I do. I want to look within myself. I want my audiences, I want my staff to look within self relative to self-reflection and self-assessment. So at the end of the school day, I say to principals all over America and all over the world, I say there's only one place on the planet for you to be, just one. And that's outside on the outside grounds with your students as they're being dismissed. I don't care if you're at the high school level. Two things. Number one, it gives you visibility. But number two, it gives you accessibility. It also allows you to be accessible to them, and it allows them to be accessible to you. Right. So there's a lot of students I wanted to talk to after school, and it gave me that opportunity if I didn't get to them during the school day. But once the ground's clear, and the only person left standing is me, everybody's gone, and I'm literally staring at the front of the building for 14 years. And I asked myself the same question for 180 days. Principal Kafele, is that school a better school because you lead it? Self-reflectively, is my school a better school because I lead it? So in other words, here's what I'm asking myself. Does equity abound in my school? Does social justice education abound in my school? Do all learners have an equitable opportunity for success in my school under my leadership? Are trajectories being altered in my school under my leadership? Are my young men given ample opportunity to transform into the men that they were destined to become? Do my young ladies have ample opportunity to transform into the women that they were born to become? Does cultural responsiveness in terms of relationship between teacher and student abound in my classrooms under my leadership? Does cultural relevance relative to instruction and learning abound in that school under my leadership? And I can go on and on. What I'm asking is my school a better school because I lead it? Are these variables and so much more that I would need more time to express, do they manifest within my school? But here's another big one. Does instructional leadership abound in that school? So as I'm going through this every day, I don't care what the weather is. I don't care if it's snowing. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's below 0 degrees. I'm going through this ritual. And here's why. Because I can't wait. You can't wait for an evaluator of record to inform you of your effectiveness. I don't have that kind of time. I've got to determine my effectiveness, and I've got to do it on a daily basis because my young people are counting on me to be extraordinary at what I do. Your young people are counting on you to be extraordinary at what you do. You can't come into that building as a leader half-stepping. You can't come into that building as a leader being okay, being average, being mediocre. You can't even be good. You got to be phenomenal. So to that regard, I'm saying to you, I got to check me. I got to assess me. I've got to evaluate me. I'm saying to you, you've got to assess you. You've got to evaluate you. You've got to make the determination because you may not have somebody else that can do it for you in real time. And that includes a thought partner. That includes an accountability partner. That person may not be there in real time to inform you of your effectiveness. So I'm going to ask the question. Now here's the thing with the answer. It's 180 days in the school year here in Jersey. Of the 180 days, a lot of those days, my answer was a flat out emphatic, no, the school is not better because I lead it. See, that's me, that's you being honest with ourselves. Because the ego, it's very easy for the ego to say, yes, 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 I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I'm the most likely to take this school to heights previously unimagined. That's easy. Ego will give you that. But when you take ego and lift it up and place it over here, and then you deal with your leadership from that vantage point, right? Is this school a better school because I lead it? Nah, not today. Here's why. Hey, leaders out there watching, but also those of you who are not in administrative leadership capacities, but you are a leader. There's not a person in education that's not a leader. The custodian's a leader. The security officer's a leader. Secretary's a leader. Cafeteria worker's a leader. Everybody's a leader, right? It just depends on leading what, right? In what capacity. So here I'm saying, you know, the work, if I could stretch my arms out, the work goes beyond our fingertips. But I'm not going, quite frankly, I'm not going to get to all the work every day. I may not get to many facets of the work in the course of a year. But for me, as I narrow my hands, I said there were really only two things that mattered to me, that they're non-negotiable, that they must be in place each and every day. Everything else was on the table. This is me personal now. Number one, instructional leadership. Because see, when I talk about like a few minutes ago, when I spoke on equity, when I spoke on social justice education, when I spoke on cultural responsibility, when I spoke on cultural relevance, right? For example, that's falling under the umbrella of instructional leadership. I may not have a teacher that walks into a building that understands the difference between equity and equality. I may not have a teacher that walks into a building understanding that equity is not solely what you do, but equity is in much larger scope, a reflection of who you are, right? I say that equity is a reflection of the teacher's humanity toward the students that he or she services. Right. So I may not have a teacher that comes in with that mindset, that equity mindset, and may come in with the understanding that there's certain practices that I need to engage in, but may not understand the attitude that I must bring in the classroom. So as instructional leader, I'm going to teach that. I can't change what you feel up here, but I can expose you to it. Right? Expose you to what an equity mindset instructor is. and the difference between an equity mindset instructor and an isolation and equity practitioner, right? They're very different, and the results are very different. So for me, within the question, is my school a better school because I lead it? Well, the first non-negotiable for me was, to what extent was I on top of my game as instructional leader? In other words, did a teacher grow today because of my presence in the building? Did a teacher become that much closer to point B from point A because of my leadership? Can a teacher look at me and say that I am growing exponentially because of the collegial relationship that I have with Principal Kafele? Or is a teacher looking at me and saying, I don't even see the man, I don't even know what he does, right? See, I always say, leader, when I walk into your school, not only do I want to see the leader, but more so, I want to be able to see the leadership. In fact, when I walk into the school, I want to be able to see the leadership without having to see the leader. Leader could be home with the flu, but I still see the leadership manifest itself because your thumbprint is literally all over the building. So second non-negotiable, student engagement. Oh man, I got to communicate with students all day long. You got to communicate with students all day long, not during instruction, but there's a whole lot of time, particularly at the secondary level, where young people are changing classes. Well, I'm gonna be visible out there. I'm gonna be engaging them out there. I'm gonna fire them up out there. We're gonna have conversations out there. If I got 1,000 youngsters in the building, I'm gonna know all 1,000 stories. If I got 2,000 in the building, I'm gonna know all 2,000 stories. I'm gonna know all 2,000 names, whatever it is. I'm going to know you as if you were my biological child. I'm going to know you as if you were my relative. See, that's student engagement. So now, because that's a goal of mine, then I got to engage you. Cafeteria, gymnasium, outside grounds, wherever it is. But again, I'm saying all that to say that I had these two non-negotiables: instructional leadership, student engagement. I'm saying to the folks that are on this call today, I'm saying to the folks that will see this video later on, I'm asking you, what are your non-negotiables? What is that thing that defines your leadership, that defines you as leader? But you know, as the time is winding down, there's a word in here that you gotta consider, and that word is the word why. See, I've been in education since 1988. First year, fifth grade teacher in Brooklyn, New York City, and walked into that school rooted, grounded, planted in my why. When I say my why, I'm saying my purpose, my reason, because. I'm asking you this afternoon, what's your why? What is the reason you do this? What is the motivation? Or are you just in there going through the motions? See, that's how you distinguish the building leader from the building manager, because that leader is rooted in a why. And that why drives that leader. My why was the empowerment of my young men. See, I wanted to make sure that my young men understood what it was to be a man. But my young men, they were Black. They were all Black, 100% of them. So I needed them to understand what it was to be a Black man in America. That was my why. And I needed them to have a firm grounding in history. I needed them to know African-American history, African Caribbean history, African continental history. I needed them to know who they were, who the reflection was in their mirror, because I understood clearly the correlation between them having a sense of who they are historically and culturally and what they can achieve academically and professionally. So when people, when I listen to my bio and people talk about the things that I've accomplished in education, I say, yeah, I did, but it's because I understood the necessary ingredients. And that was all rooted in my why, my reason, my because. So as I'm closing this out, I'm asking you, what's your why? Why do you do this work for? What are your objectives as a leader? Where will your students be as a result of you being the leader of that building, the leader of that district, the leader of that division? Where will your teachers be? Where will your overall staff be? Because you lead. You got to know that before you take the first step. You got to have that vision. You got to have that leadership mission, that leadership purpose, that leadership vision for where your school will be. So there's so much more to say, but I'm gonna be waiting for that phone call so that I can get to your school and talk about it, all your district, all day long. So with that being said, I thank you.